Hello there. Has the Irish government just signed away its country to the Brussels Eurocrats? It looks like it to me. Well, the Irish Parliament has voted by 79 votes to 72 to sign up to the European Union's new migration treaty. A treaty that basically puts the borders of the Republic of Ireland under the control of Brussels. I wonder how the hard-pressed Irish electorate will take to that one, given all the unrest over the recent surge of newcomers they've experienced. Now, the stated aim of this new compact is to put in place enhanced screening and security checks, process asylum seekers more quickly, and put more emphasis on returning unsuccessful asylum applicants. Really? The Irish Minister for Justice, Helen McEntee, said, "Those who have a right to international protection must be given that status as quickly as possible. For those who are found not to have a right to international protection, they must return to their home country as quickly as possible." The EU human rights lawyers will be looking forward to a very lucrative future. Now, importantly, this new treaty also includes mechanisms that allow EU member states to make a choice. Either accept their fair share of asylum seekers from the likes of frontline states like Italy, Greece and Spain, or if they don't take asylum seekers in, pay huge amounts of dosh that can be routed through to those frontline states to help them pay for the ones they are forced to keep. EU member states will have 2 years to put in place everything they need to in order to meet the requirements of this new compact. But Sinn Féin, the party I was led to believe was pro the EU and all immigration, is now moaning that signing up to this particular new treaty will tie the hands of future Irish parliaments. As if EU treaties don't already do just that. The Sinn Féin leader, Mary Lou MacDonald, said that the power over issues such as taxation, foreign affairs and migration must remain with the Irish people. You know, so that they can keep their low rates of business tax, to keep the likes of Google in Dublin, and to maintain their foreign policy of neutrality in conflict, allowing them to have a free defence umbrella. And now Sinn Féin is waking up to the benefits of actually having a border. Except, of course, the one between North and South of Ireland. Which brings me neatly on to the vexed question of the Northern Ireland Protocol and the open border across Ireland to maintain the peace under the Belfast Agreement. How will this be affected? Will the UK have to bend in some way to facilitate this new EU-only system? How will this affect the new trade border across the Irish Sea between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK? The only border that our politicians seem to be able or want to enforce in any meaningful way. How will this new EU treaty affect all that? Well, we may have heard a veiled answer to that from Angela Rayner, the Labour Party deputy leader. She said yesterday that every borough in the UK will be forced to take their fair share of asylum seekers once Keir Starmer gets the keys to number 10. She also said that successful asylum seekers will be allowed access to the 1.5 million new social housing and homes that will be built right across the country. Now think about that. Does that not sound like part of a wider plan? And because Labour has rejected calls to leave the ECHR or repeal any human rights legislation, as well as bin the Rwanda plan, the same rules that stop deportation today will prevent deportation tomorrow. Further, how can she deploy asylum seekers across the land? That would mean subjecting some of them to deprived inner city areas and gifting others with a nice life in leafy suburbia. I can already smell the whiff of legal action to force the government to treat them all equally by placing them all in their own mansion with large grounds. Can't you? The Telegraph did a bit of research and found that Tory areas had just over 5,000 asylum seekers, but Labour areas were housing nearly 45,000. So the redistribution might come as a bit of a shock to some people. Oh, and the binning of the Rwanda scheme will put another 90,000 asylum seekers into the mix. But, importantly, what I get from this is that Labour is starting the process of normalising the processing and distribution of large numbers of newcomers over the coming decades. This is not a short-term fix for a current problem. This is a long-term, endless policy moving towards total freedom of movement. The Labour frontbench will know that the human rights laws regarding asylum and immigration will never change under their administration. In fact, I'm sure amendments will be brought in to enhance their rights. You know, to combat criticisms from the far right. New laws will be passed to ensure that on pain of going to jail, no one ever utters a negative word about mass inward migration ever again. Especially if the newcomers originate from a certain demographic. Anyway, what Ms Rayner is promising is faster processing with all those accepted being given housing. She also says that those that fail will quickly be sent home. I beg to differ. Labour will come a cropper against the now hardened human rights lawfare brigade. But she also said, when people have been processed, they either have a right to be here and therefore we need to have the housing supply, which is what the Tories have failed to deliver on. That's why we're going to build the 1.5 million homes we need across the UK. Now for context, the Labour plan is for 1.5 million new homes over the course of their first 5-year term. That's 300,000 a year. 300,000. If annual legal migration is already well above that number, and we have to then factor in many tens of thousands of asylum seekers, what's left for those who were born here? And remember, no government will allow house prices to drop. They are never going to build an oversupply. That is electoral suicide. Britain will get building again to house the world. The UN and the WEF will be so pleased. When I look at all this, all I see is the coming together of a well-thought-out international scheme to force Western democracies to redistribute their wealth by having mass inward migration forced on them without clearly and unambiguously asking the people first. As far as I see it, all the establishment main parties and the mainstream press constitute an existential threat to the UK and its way of life. And a Labour Party with a huge majority will view that as a massive mandate to force all manner of international socialist plans on the UK. Remember that Keir Starmer has stated quite openly that he prefers the Davos WEF way of doing things. And we all know what that means for the political integrity of a nation state. It means signing the UK into as many irreversible international treaties as can be achieved in a very short time, all aided and abetted by what is now a thoroughly communist state machine, just aching to throw off the final veneer of democracy in this country. And I don't think we now have very long to wait until we see the full horror of what has been allowed by us, the sleeping voters, to develop within our state machinery. A whirlwind has been sown.